Hey guys, welcome back to another fun fall video. We're making some farmhouse home decor for the upcoming fall season. I'm crafting my stash because I don't know about you, but I've got a lot of stuff on hand and I know a lot of crafters can relate. So I'm trying to work through it, but if you don't already have items on hand, these are budget friendly. You can use items from the Dollar Tree, Hobby Lobby, and their items are already on sale. But either way, this is gonna be some fun, budget friendly crafting ahead. So let's get to it. Up first, I'm using this sign. This is from Hobby Lobby. I bought it on clearance last year at 90% off. And I'm just gonna sand it down to rough it up to make sure that the paint will adhere and also take off some of that pattern on the front side. You could use a sign maybe that you already have on hand that you're just kind of bored with and you just want to redo. Anything of a similar shape and size would work. Dollar Tree has similar items. Thrift stores is a great place to find these types of items. And also, like I said, Hobby Lobby clearance is the way to go. I buy stuff there all of the time and just make it over. So I'm just sanding that down and I'm giving it a good wipe down to clear off the dust, and we're gonna give it a solid coat of black paint. I am using Waverly chalk paint in the color ink, and the Waverly paint does give really good coverage, and I sanded it down. So I only needed to do one coat of the black paint. After I painted all of the sides and it was fully dry, I'm going in with some candle wax. Now, I'm rubbing the wax on here, and this is supposed to give a chippy paint look. I'm gonna be honest here, I don't always have success with this method, and I think it's because I'm not using a good wax. This is just one of those emergency candles from the Dollar Tree. So you're gonna see how it comes out, but it can definitely come out better. I think I just need to tweak my technique a little bit. So I am mixing up some paint. I wanted to get a off-white beigey color, and the yellow was a bad move. I don't know why I added the the yellow into my white paint, but now I'm adding in some beige. So this first coat of paint is a little bit too yellow, but I ended up having to do a second coat of this color. So we're gonna add a little bit more beige. Anyway, you're gonna see this. We're gonna paint over the wax, and I try not to go back and forth because I don't wanna pull off the wax, but we're just gonna give this a nice coat. And like I said, it did take 2 coats of paint. So I did have to give this, like I said, a second coat, and I made it a little bit less yellow. But once that it was fully dry, I'm scraping this. Now what you're supposed to do is scrape off where the wax is. That will prevent some of the paint from adhering, and then you get this chippy look. So I was able to still scrape it off, and I do ultimately like the way this looked. It still looks very rustic to me, which is what I was going for, but it's not the perfect chippy look that I've gotten before and that I've certainly seen other people do. So that one, a little too much came off, so I did touch that up a little bit, but do with that what you will. There's lots of ways of getting the rustic look, and you can certainly look up other tutorials because I'm clearly still working on mastering that. So I'm gonna go in with some Gorilla Glue and a little bit of hot glue, and I have just one of these wood pieces. This is from the Dollar Tree. I got them forever ago, but you know, you can go to your yard. You can also pick them up at some craft stores. So we're just going to glue on the stem of our pumpkin. I was also thinking of saying peduncle, which is the proper name for it. So however that came out was a little mixed up. Now to embellish, I'm going to use some of this jute cord, and I did hot glue it to help hold it down. And this is actually a really thick piece of jute cord that I have. I have a huge, huge bundle of it, and I've just been dividing it up into smaller strands rather than buying more thin jute cord. Hopefully that makes sense. So I tied some of that on, and then I have this berry garland from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to twist it around a little marker or pen or whatever I had nearby to give us some little curly cues, some tendrils for our pumpkin. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And then when I went to wrap it around, I wanted to be careful to not accidentally pull off, the stem. So I was very careful. I went to twist it on, and I thought this isn't going to quite be, I don't know, I wasn't quite right. So I twisted it on. I did put a little hot glue in the back to hold it down. And I wish I had done the berry garland and then the twine, but I didn't. So I'm adding in another batch of twine, and then I do fray the edges. You can see I kind of untwist the ends so that it just has that a little bit more of a rustic, like all over the place look. I don't know how else to say it, but I thought that was super cute. When I did trim off the ends of the berry garland, I did put a little dab of hot glue to keep the wrap there's like a little wrapper around the wire from coming off. So just thought I would share that with you, something to think about as you're doing that. and I just kind of fluffed it around and got it looking the way I wanted. But let me know what you think of this little pumpkin. I love pumpkins, all shapes, sizes, and colors. You can't have too many pumpkins in my humble opinion when it comes to fall decor. Let me know what you think of this one. Up next, I have a vase that is from my stash, but I believe it might be from Dollar Tree. You can also find lots of them at thrift stores. And then I have some corn husks from Hobby Lobby that I picked up last year. And then here's some of that jute cord. It's a really thick piece, so I kind of just split it up because I didn't need it as thick. And I'm gonna lay some corn husks down. Now, you could do this with hot glue if you wanted. I chose not to. Hot glue will come off of the vase very easily in the future while still holding the corn husks on there, but I didn't want to ruin the corn husks in case I want to take them off and use them for something else because I like to change up my decor. I'm also realizing that when I try to say corn husks too many times in a video, it's hard to say. But what I did was I laid down the jute cord, laid down the corn husks on top of it, and we're going to basically wrap this around. So again, if this is a little bit more complicated than you'd like, then go ahead and just put a tiny dab of hot glue on the glass itself. But I was able to just tie this on. So because my vase was differently shaped, I did have to tie it a little bit lower, but I do like how that came out. But use whatever you have on hand. You could even just do this with a vase jar or an old jar. But I wrapped that around a couple times and tied that in a knot. And this is holding up really, really good. I know this isn't a huge DIY, but I love how this came out. This, I was gonna say it might be my favorite, but I don't know that it's my favorite. I kind of like them all. But this is a very simple way to switch up your decor and not even have to make something permanent. But like I said, a little bit of hot glue might make this easier, and it would be very easy to come off the vase in the future. And then I just went into, I have a bin of fall florals. These are not my crafting ones that I typically would cut apart for projects. They're just my decor ones. And so I did have to pull down one bin of fall decor so that I could start on my crafting and stage this sweet little vase. So I'm just gathering up some pieces that I think look nice together. We're going for a mostly neutral. Those leaves are obviously a little bit more vibrant, which is what happens in the fall. And if you've never been to upstate New York in the fall, I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. Okay, so we're just gonna fluff that. And here's how this one came out. It was kind of hard to get some video without the shadows, obviously, just because, you know, of the size of it and everything. But I love the textures in some of those bundles. I think the little bundles with the flowers and the beads, I believe, or not beads, the little berries, I think those are from Dollar Tree. Actually, I think the leaves are from Dollar Tree as well. So don't snooze on Dollar Tree. Up next, I am taking some paint that I had previously mixed up and I'm adding in some baking soda. We're gonna paint this terracotta pot. This pot has been painted a couple different times for different projects. So to cover up some of that and to give this more rustic farmhouse feel to it, we're gonna paint this baking soda and paint mixture. Now, I would recommend using an older paintbrush. I used one of my nicer ones. Not expensive, but it is one of my nicer ones. I just made sure I washed it very quickly afterwards with warm water, and that does help dissolve and get all of that baking soda out. If you let this sit, it will turn into kind of like cement. So I brushed this on. Once I had good coverage with it, I kind of just took the paintbrush here and like tapped it to make sure I had some more texture. I didn't want it to be too smooth, but I was trying to make sure that I had good coverage. So we're gonna do that around the whole thing. I did not paint the texture on the bottom of the pot because I didn't want it to affect like the way it would sit down on shelf, whatever, wherever I display this. But it is the same color, it just doesn't have the baking soda in it. And we're gonna do this around the whole thing. Now you could avoid doing the top part of the pot. I almost did that with some jute twine and attached that. So that would be another really great option, but I decided to just do more of this textured painting technique on the whole thing. Do make sure that you get the top little rim here so that you are giving it a complete touch here, you know, leave no part unfinished. You're gonna let this dry fully and completely. And then I'm going to use a stencil brush and a little bit of antique wax, and I'm very gently grazing over this because where all of those peaks are from the baking soda, it's gonna grab the antique wax that is on my stencil brush, and this is just gonna give it more of an aged look. You could also do just some like black paint or brown paint. just kind of making it look like it's old, an old cement pot. That is the look we are going here. You could also use a small plastic pot, but if you do that, I would recommend putting some little rocks in the bottom to weigh it down so that your end project does not topple over. But I had this, so I just went with the heavier pot. Once that is dry, I decided to go in with a thick coat of Mod Podge. I don't know if this is necessary. I don't know if the baking soda peaks and stuff would start to chip off, but I have the Mod Podge on hand, so I just decided to put a good coat on and let that fully dry. And I tell you what, it feels like that peaks and the texture is not going anywhere. You can use a matte finish or a satin finish, whatever you want. Mine is a little bit more of a matte finish. I am just drying the bottom with my heat gun so that I can set it down and cover the rest with Mod Podge. If you do not have a heat gun, I highly recommend using a hairdryer. I used to use my hairdryer on low heat, but my hairdryer bit the dust. It doesn't have a heat element anymore, and I never dry my hair, so I got myself a heat gun for crafting. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I love to share budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel, and I hope that you consider subscribing to my channel before you leave and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on my future projects. So I have these styrofoam pumpkins from Hobby Lobby. The original price is $2.99. Right now their stuff is 40% off. I picked this up last year at the end of year clearance for 29 cents. So we're gonna use 3 of them. Now I made a complete mess pouring out a little bit of white paint, but that's okay. We're gonna clean it up. Then I'm adding in a little bit of antique wax. Once again, I wanted a not pure white, but not like a true off-white color. We're gonna paint our pumpkins with this color. Well, I'm gonna paint 2 of them. I do give each pumpkin 2 coats of paint because they, just for the styrofoam, I was just trying to like fill in all of the, not all of the gaps because some of the gaps are nice texture on pumpkins, but just get really good coverage. The styrofoam just kind of soaks it up. And then I put a little skewer through the bottom. These are just styrofoam, and flipped it over so I could paint the underside. And then I just stood these up in my little basket that's behind there because, you know, when I craft, there's a little bit of a mess, and it's sometimes hard for me to crop all of my mess out for you guys when I'm doing my video. But I'm gonna do 2 pumpkins in this creamy grayish, brownish, not grayish, brownish off-white color. And then rather than wasting the paint, I'm just gonna add in some Pumpkin by Waverly, and I wanted a more muted orange. I didn't want a bright, bright orange, so we're gonna mix that in and do our 3rd pumpkin in that color. I'm just reusing, if you can't tell here, I have a paper bowl that I was mixing my paint in. What was in there was dry and is gone, so I just lined it with a piece of aluminum foil and reused it. I could have probably just put the paint in because the other paint was dry, but just to be sure, I did it this way. Once those are dry, I just decided to go in with a little bit of antique wax on my little stencil brush. I'm just brushing off a lot of the paint and just kind of added a little bit of texture in here. I did mainly the indents of the pumpkin, and I did a little bit more across the rest of it. And I also continued those lines across the top and the bottom just to continue that shape. As you may have noticed, those pumpkins don't have any stems. So I have these little sticks from my stash, and we're gonna cut them down. I have this little miter box and saw, which are very handy and very easily cut down little pieces like this. And the saw is held in place, so I don't have to worry about cutting off my finger. So I'm just using one of these little sticks. This was from Dollar Tree once again, but also, you know, you can certainly just use one from your yard. And I'm just gonna cut that one down into 3 little pieces. I'm just gonna widen the hole of the pumpkin with these little scissors, and then we're gonna put in some hot glue and push these stems down in. You could have just glued them on top, but I wanted them down pretty good to make sure that they were going to hold, and that did just fine with a little bit of hot glue. I'm just taking some floral foam from the Dollar Tree, using my little putty knife to cut it up, and we're just gonna fill our pot. You don't necessarily have to use floral foam. We're not actually sticking like anything in it, but it does give a surface to attach things to. So I'm just gonna shove some scraps in there and just give ourselves, I just needed something up to the top to attach. We're gonna make a little pumpkin topiary of some kind. Now I'm gonna say this didn't come out how I initially planned, but I'm going to share it with you because I like to share the process with you and how you work with what you've got. So I thought I had a bunch of moss. I also thought I was recording, but I shredded up some paper. A friend of mine suggested this, Favi from Arrows DIY, and I actually really like it, even though this isn't the route I ended up staying with. I like it, but it was a little bit more whimsical than I wanted, so I saved the rest of that shredded paper. It's just a shredded book page. and we're going to use that again in the future. But I was trying to come up with a creative idea because I didn't have a lot of moss. So I'm just doing these. I'm wanting them to be very staggered. I actually meant them to be a little bit more off kilter than they are. But you know, you just go with it. So I filled this with paper. I did add in a couple of leaves, and then I was like, I liked the overall look, but it was just a little too whimsical for me. It wasn't farmhouse enough. So now I'm trimming back the paper, and I am going to make the little bit of moss that I have left work. And we're going to fill in between each pumpkin. I did leave a couple of the leaves on there, and I'm just going to go in and add some of this moss. Now I really wanted the brown wiry moss. This is more of a flaky, messy moss. I mean, all moss is a little bit messy, but I'm gonna make it work. And ultimately I do like it, but it wasn't exactly what I had in my mind. I wanted that brown, I don't know what it's called, if it's the Spanish moss or what. I think it depends on where you get it almost, but the more wiry moss, if that makes sense. But I thought about using some shredded twine. The paper, again, it was a cute idea. I really like it. I think I want to use it for something in the future because I loved the way it looked. But yeah, we're going to just do the moss instead. This is just the route that I ultimately decided to take. But just goes to show, work with what you've got. Try something. If you don't like it, change it up. This is how this little stack came out. And I love it. I do ultimately love it. So I want you to let me know down in the comments what you think and what maybe you would have done differently. That is going to do it for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up because that helps me out so much. Subscribe if you are new to my channel. Make sure your notification bell is turned on. That way YouTube will actually share my videos with you. That's kind of important for you and for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.